A Kiwi chick just minutes old stumbles into life. This is Ohopi number 5. If this unhatched egg had been left in the wild, he would have almost certainly been killed by a predator.
Well, the fact that, there's only 5% of those chicks that survive in the wild is the biggie. You know, these birds live for 40 odd years in the wild, but if you have only 5%, that are surviving, you don't have a population. Anybody who could do the maths will work that out.
Before Europeans introduced a range of predators, there were more than 5 million of these flightless birds. Now there are fewer than 50,000. If left to fend for itself, the Kiwi would disappear from mainland New Zealand, left on just a handful of offshore islands.
Over the shell, you see he's already trying to stand up.
How many New Zealanders now realise that the Kiwi itself could well be extinct on mainland New Zealand in 15 to 25 years. Our national icon extinct on the mainland, it's a preposterous end to come to, and we won't let it happen.
Former dairy farmer David Wallace is one of an unlikely new breed of New Zealand conservationists, fighting to save this national treasure.
We know we've identified at least 24 different ferns, which is quite remarkable, far more than we thought.
He and his forefathers slashed and destroyed the country's native forest and fauna. But David Wallace and many of his farming neighbours are now answering the frightening wake-up call about New Zealand's disappearing bird life.
We knew from the work that the Department of Conservation had done on offshore islands that if you could rid a forest of all the introduced mammalian pests, you could bring back so many of the species that are under threat, and some species of plant and animal that were still there in very low numbers would start to flourish.
What he's created here in the heart of New Zealand's farming district is effectively an inland island. A pest-proof fence rings 16 hectares of his property, keeping out everything from the smallest mouse to the agile domestic cat. And the biggest Kiwi killer, the stoat.
Probably got a 95 to 100% chance of surviving in here. It forages for its food in here naturally at night time. It's a nocturnal creature, the North Island brown kiwi, which we have here, and there's nothing to attack it.
It's a smelly little guy, this one.
This is a transponder which are going on all the chicks now. It's a form of permanent identification. It's a little microchip.
The Conservation Department brings chicks here from the nearby Kiwi hatchery until they're big enough to fend for themselves in the wild.
The little guy, he's had a tube down his neck already this morning.
It gets the Kiwis out of harm's way in their crucial first few months and keeps them out of zoos or smaller enclosures where they'd have to be artificially fed.
Say bye-bye, Puma.
In a few months, these rangers will come back for Boomer. But today they're on the hunt for another Kiwi that should have hit the critical 1 kilogram mark, which means it's ready to go back into the wild.
It looks like it's just up in this direction, so I'll just shoot above it. It's going up the ridge, quite a wee bit above it. Is he still towards me? Or where is he? Oh! Let's see him. He's going out towards you, Robin. Awesome. Oh, come on. You're pleased to see us. I know you are.
But this project at his farm Warrenhip is nothing compared to David's next grand plan. He's talking now about turning this entire nearby mountain, Mungatautari, into a Kiwi sanctuary.
We are helping to save the Kiwi with Warrenhip. We want to expand that to Mungatautari, which is 200 times the size of Warrenhip, so that we can have between 2,000 and 3,000 Kiwi flourishing in the heart of the Waikato. Imagine that, 2,000 to 3,000 Kiwi in the heart of the Waikato, one of the great farming districts of New Zealand.
Wallace and his farming neighbours are just about to start work on a 50-kilometre pest-proof fence that will ring Mongatautari. It will be the most significant Kiwi sanctuary on mainland New Zealand. So far they've done it without a cent of government money.
There it sits in a sea of farmland, pasture all around it, so that if it can be shown that this island of native forest can be restored, that the dawn chorus can actually be brought back to Mongatautari, we show all New Zealanders and indeed the world that we can bring the dawn chorus back to any pieces of native forest anywhere in New Zealand.
This small community will plug away until they've raised the last dollar of the millions they need to build the fence. It's a gift to their children, so they too can grow up knowing the call of the Kiwi.